Hi everybody, Ms. Levesque here. Today we're going to start a new topic, which is nature of science, and we're going to start with lesson 1, which is science versus non-science. Our learning objectives for this lesson are to identify true science versus non-science, to identify which questions can be answered through science, to explain that scientific knowledge is durable, robust, and open to change. So in order to understand science, first we have to ask, what does science do? Science studies the natural phenomena, which are events that can be observed, measured, and tested by the scientific method. In order to consider something science, we have to use our 5 senses to observe the phenomena or event. When we study science, we have to assume that the universe is orderly, reasonable, and testable. When we study science, we develop theories. A theory is one of our vocab words. It's a well-defined, naturally occurring cause, also called a mechanism, which explains why or how a natural event, called a phenomenon, occurs. So a theory explains why something happens in the natural world. Theories are always subject to change. We say that they are tentative or uncertain. As science gets better and better and technology improves, we get more and more information about the phenomena or events around us, and our theories are open to change as we get more information. It's important to remember that science does not have all of the answers to all of the questions in the universe. It also doesn't have the solutions to all of human problems. When we're looking at something as science versus non-science, we have to recognize that there are 6 criteria in order to call something true science. First, science has to be consistent. It has to be observable, natural, predictable, testable, and tentative. First, let's talk about consistency. Consistency means you have repeated observations and/or experiments concerning your naturally occurring event or concerning your phenomenon. Using the idea of consistency, how can we determine which statement above is a scientific one? First, green plants will grow towards light. Second, walking under a ladder will cause bad luck. Remember, consistency has to be repeatable. Of these two, the first one is your consistent statement. Green plants will always grow towards a light source. Walking under a ladder doesn't always cause bad luck. Second, science has to be observable. The event, which means the event can be observed and explained by using your 5 senses, or by extensions of the senses, such as something called an electron microscope. If the event cannot be reproduced through controlled conditions, natural evidence of the event's occurrence has to be available for investigation. What that means is, if you can't reproduce the event in a laboratory, you have to have repeated natural evidence that you can see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. Using the idea of observability, how can we determine which statement above is a scientific one? First, we have some plants eat meat. Second, we have extraterrestrial beings have visited Earth. Of these two, the first one is your observable phenomenon. We can actually see plants, like the Venus flytrap, consume flies. We can't always see extraterrestrial beings. The third idea that defines science is that it has to be natural. You have to have a natural cause or mechanism used to explain why or how the naturally occurring event happens. So you have to have a natural mechanism to explain why or how your event happens. This means that scientists cannot use supernatural explanations to tell why or how something happens. A reference to the supernatural is outside the realm of science. Using the idea of natural, how can we determine which statement is a scientific one? Green plants convert sunlight into energy. With a rod, Moses parted the sea so his people could cross to the other side. Of these two options, the natural phenomenon is that green plants convert sunlight into energy. This doesn't refer to the supernatural at all. Next, science must be predictable. This means that the mechanism of the naturally occurring event can be used to make specific predictions. That means that if we know part A and B, we can predict what's going to happen next. Each prediction must be able to be tested to determine if it's true or false. Using the idea of predictability, how can we determine which statement above is a scientific one? First, without sunlight or comparable artificial light, green plants will die. Second, if you are a Scorpio, your horoscope for today is you'll be saying, I feel rich. Lunar position highlights back pay refunds, correction of accounting error. Both of these are making a prediction, but the only one that we could actually test is the first. We can put plants in sunlight and some without, and we can predict which ones will die. Fifth, science has to be testable, which means that the mechanism of the event must be testable through the process of science or the scientific method. Again, reference to supernatural events or causes are not relevant tests. Using the idea of testability, how can we determine which statement above is a scientific one? First, we have the Bermuda Triangle causes ships and planes to sink and disappear. Second, we have life comes from life and cannot come from non-life. Of these two, the testable statement is statement number 2. You can take, and this experiment was done in a flask. We had a flask that was open to the environment where bacteria could fall into some culture media. And then there was a second flask that had a curved section. And when the bacteria fell into the top, they got trapped here, and this media did not grow. Bacteria. This media did not grow bacteria. So there was no growth because the bacteria got trapped in the neck of this flask. And here, the bacteria were able to fall from the environment and grow in the media. That is a testable scientific experiment. Finally, science must be tentative. Scientific theories are always subject to revision and correction, even to the point of the theory being proven wrong. We're going to talk soon about atomic theory and we're going to talk about how many changes it went through before we got to the theory we have today. Scientific theories have been modified and will continue to be modified to consistently explain observations of naturally occurring events. As more information becomes available, we have to adapt our ideas of reality. Using the idea of tentativeness, how can we determine which statement above is not a scientific statement? 1. The number of human chromosomes was once known to be 48, but is now considered to be 46. 2. Living things were once grouped into 2 major groups, then 3, then 4, now 5, because the criteria used for classifying living things has changed. 3. We know that the world began about 6,000 years ago, and nothing will change that. 4. At one time, it was thought the heart pumped blood out of a large container as an open system, but now it is known that blood circulates in a closed system. The statement here that is not tentative and therefore is not a scientific statement is number 3. This is the one that's not open to change. Emerging science, or near science, differs from true science in that consistent observations and predictions may be limited by knowledge and/or technology. If we look at something called parapsychology, parapsychology includes phenomenon like clairvoyance, precognition, and psychokinesis. Clairvoyance is seeing into the future, precognition is visions of the future as well, and psychokinesis has to do with mind reading. Scientists generally consider parapsychology a pseudoscience, or not a real science, because its phenomena conflict with known physical laws. However, at least one member of the parapsychology family, which is mental telepathy, which is thought transmission directly from one brain to another, might be worthy of scientific consideration. Mental telepathy then could be considered a proto-science instead of a pseudoscience. A non-science is an area of knowledge that does not meet the criteria, the CONPTT. Non-science topics may be very logical and based on good reasoning, but simply do not fall within the realm of science. This includes any belief system, religious beliefs, philosophy, personal opinions or attitudes, a sense of aesthetics or ethics. False science is also called pseudoscience, which is a type of non-science, but it is portrayed and advertised as a legitimate science. This could mean that it was disproved scientifically, that it can't be tested, or that it lacks scientific evidence to support it. Examples of pseudoscience are hypnosis, handwriting analysis, and the flat earth theory. That's the end of our presentation. Please complete the activity for lesson 1.